In today's video, we're taking a look at the latest unrestricted free agents still looking for a contract. We'll take a look at the latest forwards, D, and goalies still on the market. Plus, we have news out of Dallas and Carolina, and we have the latest trade rumors involving the Boston Bruins, Carolina Hurricanes, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Plus, is Alexis Lafreniere with the Rangers a prime target for an offer sheet, or better yet, could he be traded? We'll discuss the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of news and some trade rumors to take a look at here today. First up, I just want to take a quick look at some of these key unrestricted free agents that are still looking for work, still remain unsigned as I record this video, of course, on Thursday evening here, July 20th. Quite a few days now into free agency. And still some of these players that we suspected would be signed, and a lot of these guys probably will get work in the NHL. There could be some that get squeezed. Maybe have to go to training camp on a tryout or something, but there's still a decent amount of players out there, and we haven't really heard a ton of new information on some of them. Like we have Vladimir Tarasenko, still linked to the same teams, Carolina, Ottawa to some degree. There's a few other teams out there, but they're the main two teams mentioned. Tomas Tatar's name is out there. Matt Dumba, Josh Bailey, Tony DeAngelo has yet to sign anywhere since being bought out. Suter out of Detroit, he obviously still remains out there as a good third line option for some teams. Nick Ritchie's unsigned. Ethan Bear, Max Comtois, Paul Stastny, Phil Kessel, Colin White, a couple goalies with Marty Jones and Yaro Halak. Yoel Kiviranta out of Dallas, who's really looking for work right now. Denton Heinen, Noah Gregor out of San Jose was let go. Tyler Mott, again, just like last year, was a late signing in Ottawa, still looking for work here yet again. So quite a few decent players. Most of these guys are going to be third pair defensemen or third, fourth liners for the most part. There's a few of these guys that would have a shot at cracking a top six or higher up on the D-core, but for the most part they're depth players. But Tarasenko and Tatar especially, I think, can play top six roles still. So very interesting to see that they're not signed. And like I said, there just hasn't been a ton of new information this week on where some of these guys are going. On Matt Dumba, I did see some speculation that the Dallas Stars were interested, but I'm not really sure exactly how he fits there. Looking at what they have for salary cap space and on their roster for defensemen, I don't know that that's a perfect fit. I understand that maybe it's a depth option, but Matt Dumba is still capable of playing a top six role. At least I think. I wonder, is there any chance he goes back to Minnesota and signs extremely cheap? We know he was happy there, but certainly not much money left in their situation. So interesting to see what happens with some of these players. We also got news out of Dallas today that Ben Bishop, longtime goalie, has officially joined the team as a player development coordinator. We know Ben Bishop, unfortunately, last year had to call it quits and put an end to his long NHL career after being out for an extensive period of time with some injuries with his lower body and hips. He did try to make a comeback, but fell short of being able to go through the motions and get himself in healthy enough status to make that comeback. But of course, it was already rumored that he was going to be going into an off-ice role with Dallas. They were just waiting for his contract to fully expire before they made anything official and coordinate the exact title that he was going to have. So player development is where he lands. The Carolina Hurricanes, in the pending UFA Sebastian Aho, are getting close on a long-term extension. Right now, the 2024 free agent class, it looks like it could be extremely interesting, much bigger upgrades on players that were available compared to this summer. But a lot of those players could end up, re-signing with their existing clubs. Aho would be part of that group, of course. Right now, things are trending in that direction. Hurricanes GM Don Waddell made comments to the NHL.com article suggesting that they are getting close, that they're having dialogue on a daily basis. He said that Aho has made it known that he has a desire to be a Hurricane for the remainder of his career. Yes, the offer sheet thing that came out 4 years ago with the Montreal Canadiens happened. He did sign it, but he said really they talked about it once after it happened, and they've put it behind them ever since. And really, lots of continue to go well for Aho with the Hurricanes. He loves the coach and Rod Brindamore. Obviously, they've had a lot of team success as well, and he's very interested in staying there, which makes total sense. It's a good fit for him. I suspect that they will reach a deal, and it sounds like they're getting close. Hard to say exactly what kind of money we're talking about. Certainly going to be a bit, fairly good raise on what he's making now, and I suspect that it's going to likely be probably an 8-year contract. So we'll have to see. That should be coming soon. Waddell was optimistic they would be able to get something done here within the next week. I believe Aho's birthday is next week as well, so maybe he'll get a birthday present for a huge contract extension in Carolina. Now, on to some different trade scenarios and things that we're looking at around the NHL. I want to stop and take a look at the Boston Bruins. The Bruins are going to be an interesting team to watch in the next little bit here. They still have a couple of restricted free agents that need new deals, specifically goaltender Jeremy Swayman and forward Trent Frederick. Now, they do have around $5 million in space, but it's suspected that these two players could maybe even eat up more than that. It just depends on the terms that they come to in an agreement. I think the Swayman contract will be a little bit more lucrative, but not to say that they're going to want to go, big money or long-term or anything like that, but it has potential. I mean, if you take a look at what some of the other goalies have signed for this offseason, for Swayman to end up with at least, $3.5-4 million range, I don't think it's really all that outrageous. It's, especially if he signs, 2-3 year contract. So we'll have to see what they do. I suspect it's likely going to be a bridge deal, but we don't know what the Bruins are going to do exactly when it comes to any other moves. Right now, there's still uncertainty around Bergeron and Krejci. I suspect that there's a good chance neither return, and I think the Bruins are operating on that assumption, but they can't, just turn these guys away. If Bergeron says, I want to play, they're going to take him back, and they will. They'd be crazy not to. So at the end of the day, they technically, in my opinion, still have a little bit of things to do, even if those guys play or not play. So obviously they might need to look to some cost-cutting moves. One that was suggested by Bruins reporter Jimmy Murphy of Boston Hockey Now suggests that maybe either a trade or potential buyout if they get the second window, and they should here, with defenseman Derek Forbort. Now, of course, once the Swayman and Frederick contracts are looked after, where they did have players file for arbitration, they can certainly get a second window. So that's a possibility they could do that. Maybe a forward trade is something that would be probably preferable, so they don't have any more dead money next year. But either way, he is a player that could go. I mean, I know Matt Grzelcyk's name has been out there for some time as well, but based on what we've seen with their blue line, I think Forbort would be more likely to go, to be honest, before Grzelcyk would at this point. There's still a lot of uncertainty around Jake DeBrusk as well. I know it might seem crazy for some people to think that the Bruins would consider trading him. He was a very productive, solid winger for them last year, but he's got 1 year left on his contract. He's trending towards being an unrestricted free agent. It's not quite known at this point if he wants to sign long-term or remain with the Bruins. He did have a trade request on the table before. Once they made the coaching change and everything, he did rescind that. So we can't say with any certainty that he doesn't want to stay. But at this point, there's been really no talks as far as what's been mentioned in the media. It sounds like a DeBrusk extension has not been discussed between Sweeney and his representatives, at least as of yet. Now, things can come together quickly. Things can drag on. It's hard to say. So we don't really know where that stands, but considering that there's been no reports of it, it's probably fair to say that it's not really front burner, top business, top of mind for Sweeney at the moment. But that does mean that, it is possible. I know because there's been some thought out there that he could be a potential trade target. There's been other mentions, especially if Bergeron doesn't come back, and if Krejci doesn't come back, then they really need help at center. Their center depth is not good without those guys, and that as much as he's been a good winger for them, they might have to move somebody of value to bring in somebody of value, and he could possibly be that guy. I know it's probably not a preferred thing, but I think they're going to have to engage in conversations around the extension. Obviously, if they'd like to sign him and he wants to stay, maybe they can work something out. And if it looks like it's going to be agreeable, they can get that done. And maybe he's part of the solution moving forward there. But if the contract negotiations don't go well, or one side doesn't have interest to do the extension at all, then clearly it makes things a little bit different. So we'll have to see. But the Bruins are going to be interesting here in the next little bit as these arbitration cases get closer to taking place, or they get resolved on their own. Either way, once those contracts are done, there likely is going to be a subsequent move afterwards. Carolina is another team I want to take a look at as well. We know that they're hot and heavy on Erik Karlsson trade watch, and of course, I'm not overly confident they're going to get it done. Personally, I'm not convinced that Karlsson would want to go to Carolina. I've seen some reports suggesting that he does not like Brent Burns. I don't think that's necessarily the case at all. I just think the two played extremely much better on their own away from each other when they were both the dominant defensemen, both right shot, both need a lot of power play time, top offensive starts, all that stuff. They can't spread it around enough when they're both on the same team. It's just that simple. And look at the year they both had this year playing apart for the first time in a few years. It's not a coincidence that they both had phenomenal seasons. So I just don't understand, to me, why the Hurricanes know this. They've seen, what happened when they had him and Burns together before. They have several other good defensemen. And besides Burns, I understand how tempting it is when you know that a player like this is on the market to get involved and see if you can add him to your team, but it doesn't always make you better. Sometimes it can disrupt your chemistry and make things worse. And I just don't know that it's really the best move for them. And I think that with what Karlsson had in San Jose previously, I just don't see a scenario where he really views that as his greatest option, and he has full control here. I think a team like Pittsburgh, or if another team happens to emerge out of the darkness here, that it could be another surprise team, might be better for him. Now, besides that, we know the Hurricanes are also looking at bringing in another top six, ideally a center, but if not, a high-scoring winger. They want another game breaker. They had Max Pacioretty. Unfortunately, he dealt with a lot of injuries last year. There was interest to bring him back, but I don't think they were willing to give the money that he was able to get elsewhere where he left and went to Washington. So clearly, they've got their eyes around the league on some potential trades at this point. Now, assuming they need to free up money, if they're either A, successful in the Karlsson sweepstakes, or if they turn their attention to getting another top forward in there, the Teuvo Teravainen is a player that is somebody they're willing to move on from. I mean, he is getting close to the end of his contract, and makes a hefty enough amount of money that obviously moving him out frees up a decent amount of space. So he apparently is out there. We know Brett Pesce is out there as well. Last year of his contract, a valued defenseman, I think would be, a player that a lot of teams would have interest in. He's often been mentioned in trade rumors for a long time. Anytime you hear Carolina looking for a top scorer, because this has been an ongoing issue with them for some time, he's been the name that's come up. Now, it's never happened up until now, and now that he's at the end of his deal and negotiations aren't going well, then it seems like it's more likely that he is going to get moved. And with the deep blue line they have, I think it makes sense that if you can't get him signed, that you just have to cut your losses and move on. But he could be part of a package to get another top player. We had suggested before that package him with a guy like Marty Necas. Maybe they talked to the Leafs about William Nylander. They've been linked to Nylander for a long time. We know the Leafs and Nylander are far apart on their contract. If the Leafs do end up making a deal, I would not be shocked if they're in on the action. They just seem to be in on everybody, and they do need a game-breaking forward. And to me, he makes a lot of sense for them. Now, I'm not sure that they're going to want to move Necas. I know ideally they would probably prefer to keep him, but I don't know that the Leafs are going to be accepting a package of Teravainen and Pesce. I think they'd like Pesce if they could get him extended. He could be part of it for sure. I can see maybe Jack Drury being part of it. Obviously, Drury's a player that the Hurricanes know would like more opportunity and was open to a trade. You always have some draft picks you could throw in there as well. It might have to be something along those lines. But Mark Scheifele is also another player Carolina can turn their attention to as well. I really think that rather than go for Karlsson, Nylander or Scheifele make a lot more sense for the Hurricanes. And they have the assets to get it done. They have the ability to extend them. Scheifele in some ways makes more sense because he's a center, and really I think they could use another center behind Aho to really solidify their depth up the middle. But Nylander, during his time in Toronto, has proven he can be a really legitimate, solid playoff performer. I mean, he's been one of their better forwards production-wise in playoffs. So either way, they have options, and I can see them turning their attention to one of those guys once the Karlsson stuff finally sorts itself out, because I don't see them being successful there, but I could be wrong. We'll find out soon enough. Hopefully when this deal finally gets together and gets it done, and hopefully we're not waiting all summer for that. And the last player I want to take a look at here is the Rangers and Alexis Lafreniere. Now, the Rangers, of course, like many teams, are very tight on the cap space. He's a restricted free agent, doesn't have arbitration rights yet, so they can't get a contract settled that way. There's a lot of speculation about him being a potential offer sheet target. Now, we haven't seen an offer sheet in a while, but we've seen him go between Montreal and Carolina. A little tick for tat there, and obviously one was successful, one wasn't. I've seen a lot of talk about Montreal offer sheeting Lafreniere, given the fact, and I think a lot of people go that route and suggest it or speculate it could happen because of the connection with Jeff Gorton being with Montreal. Now, of course, he was the Rangers GM at the time when they drafted Lafreniere number 1 overall, and I'm sure he's would love to get him on the team and give him an opportunity to flourish and show New York that they made a mistake. But the problem is here, I don't think Montreal is going to be offer sheeting anybody, especially Lafreniere. For one, if you take a look at the compensation that they'd have to give up, like if you're looking at, you're going to have to probably offer in that bracket that goes between like $4.5 to $6 million or so, and to have any chance to be successful on probably on a 1-year deal. And you're looking at a first and second round pick. And Montreal doesn't even have their own second round pick right now. So that you have to have your own picks to be available for compensation should the offer sheet be successful. So to me, and I don't see them going more than that. That seems a little bit crazy. And I also don't think Montreal is going to want to give up their first round pick. I also seen Chicago be linked to Lafreniere in a potential offer sheet. But the problem is, to be successful, you're going to have to go high enough that at least one first-round pick is going to be involved in the compensation package. And Montreal and Chicago know well enough that they're not going to be great teams next year, and they're still going to have lottery picks. And as much as they might like to have Lafreniere to give him a shot at playing a bigger role and stealing him from the Rangers, there's no way they're going to do that and give up their first-round pick. If they could trade for him and give some other prospects back, and maybe a future first rounder, or perhaps even a later round pick or something, a different form of compensation, then they'll do it. But honestly, I think at this point, the Rangers, I wouldn't be shocked if they consider trading Lafreniere. I know there's a lot of talk that they want to get him signed, and they're with a new coach coming in, that they're going to certainly still continue to believe in him. And hopefully he breaks out this year. But at the end of the day, they had a first overall pick, they had a second overall pick, and then they, with all the other moves they've made, they've boxed Lafreniere and Kakko out from having any chance to play a top 6 role. So as much as you can't, you can't expect them, I don't think, to really break out and really turn into stars when they're not getting to play the big minutes and having a chance to really flourish in more of an offensive role. So at the end of the day, that's a little bit surprising to me. And could they end up moving on from one or both of them because of the production not being there? It's certainly a real possibility. I think a trade's more likely than an offer sheet at this point. Teams seem to be reluctant to use them for whatever reason. I think they're obviously an underutilized tool that can be highly entertaining for fans to watch, but it seems like teams are reluctant to do it because they don't want to be the ones to be the next victim to have a player possibly taken from them that route, and they're afraid of the repercussions, so to speak. But do you see Lafreniere being an offer sheet target, or will he be traded, or is he just going to end up signing a short-term deal, going back to the Rangers? They'll figure out a way to make the money work and then see if he can flourish under this new coach. I still don't know that he has a long-term future in the Big Apple. I think that another season, regardless of how it goes, unless he really breaks out, a trade is becoming more likely as he enters the 4th year of his NHL service. So we'll see how things go. But let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll talk further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.